Hi Lisa, can you tell something more about letting go of old suffering from the body? Listening to your videos all day, regards, and it seems to be my problem. So to me, there's so many different therapies out there, so many beautiful and brilliant therapies. To me, the way that I discovered working with my body and what I tend to teach is chakras. I didn't consciously learn what I teach. It was like bits from different teachers that worked for me. So what I began to notice when I was in non-duality was I could have these really profound waking up experiences and knowing who I was, but then there could be like a deep triggering of something in the body and a tight contraction and pulling back into the story and who I was. Like the feeling and the emotion was too much. And what I began to learn over time was, because at first I used to think that if you engage in the story, if you do something with the story, you're encouraging the person. But then through time I began to learn that the body stores stories. So it's not actually a person that stores stories. It's actually the body, and then they get activated and they pop up into the imagination. So there isn't actually somebody, like an entity, that's holding on to the story of you. The entity is something that's always appearing in the moment, and the body holds on to things that happen. So for example, say if when you're younger you get bullied at school, or you get traumatized by something that happens at school, maybe you got bullied by the teachers or by the other pupils. Say it was that you used to get kicked in the playground by the other kids. What it did was, maybe when you're in relationship with kids that are like them, so like boys or young boys that look a particular way, your whole body tenses up. So they kick you and it made you feel really afraid, and your whole body shut down, and you didn't really release that feeling. Your body sort of encompassed, held it or owned it. So say when they were interacting with you, it made you feel really afraid, really small, really insignificant, very ashamed. And then you held that in your body for the rest of the day. You didn't know how to deal with it when you were that age, and you just held it, to try to pretend not to express it to other people that you're okay, that it doesn't matter. But behind that, you felt it. And then this goes on throughout our life. So say you get bullied, and then you have a dramatic relationship with your first girlfriend or boyfriend, and then you have difficulties with your boss at work, and it goes on and on and on. And every time it adds to the body's stress. So it adds more stories. And the reason that the body holds on to them is because they're not digested through the body. So when an animal is shocked or stressed, so say Khaleesi, when my dog is stressed, as soon as that stressful situation disappears, she normally stretches and yawns or shakes. Whereas humans don't do this. They don't know how to let it go. They carry on imagining it for hours, days, weeks, years after the events have happened. And all humans are like this. There's nobody that needs to be ashamed of it. It's a very natural response of the body to be shocked by something. And then we were never taught of how to release it or let go of it. So this happens throughout your childhood, and then you begin to hold that in your body, and then you begin to determine your life a bit from that bullying experience. You avoid people that might be bullies, or situations that might cause social anxiety, or where you might experience fear, and then your life begins to mold to that. And the whole time the body's actually never dealt with the original problem. And so when I was in my 20s, maybe 25, 26, I began to discover how amazing massage was for letting go of these stories and changing the makeup of my body. And I would massage certain points in my body, and I'd feel certain stories come up and certain ideas. And then eventually, as I got more sensitive and I learned more about my body and felt more things about my body, I began to realize how all emotions and feelings stem from chakra points in your body. So even if you're massaging your leg and a big emotion comes up, that emotion is then actually stored in one of the chakras. So we've got these 7 chakras through our body. So when you're feeling fear, you feel it in your sacral chakra, which is your lower belly. When you're feeling something like frustration or stuckness or helplessness, you feel it in your sacral, in your solar plexus. When you're feeling unbalanced and like you can't trust and ungrounded, you feel it in your root. When you have heartache, you feel it in your heart. When you feel unloved, abandoned. When you can't express yourself or not being seen, you feel it in your throat. Overthinking, compulsive imagination, cut off from empathy, you feel it in your third eye. And then cut off from something greater, you feel it in your crown chakra. It's sort of like a pushing down, like feeling heavy and weighty, and no connection to mystery. So that took a while for me to connect all of that. So massaging the body and my body relaxing. And then I began to be able to connect it to the chakras. And I could see that that all chakras, they always produce a similar type of feelings. So these similar feelings. And that gave me a guidebook to understand what was happening. So then that was a process, and another process took part. So say if I was in front of someone and I felt tense, I would then go into my chakras and analyze which one was in contraction and which one was tight and which one was hurting. So say if I was talking to someone and I felt tense, I would then go and look and see and realize that it's the heart chakra. I feel like I'm not good enough. And then I could do things I began to do it really quickly. So I'd be like, so where's that feeling coming from? When was the first time you felt not good enough? When I was at school and I was bullied by the teachers, or when I failed this exam, or etc. And I could connect it really quickly, and I would begin to move it into my life. It took years to get good at this, and I still practice it as well. And so what I do is I use the chakras to actually understand what my body is feeling and experiencing when I'm interacting with the world, even when things are happening really quickly, if I'm walking across the road or something. And then I feel like this is being like, I know it sounds weird, but that's being like the most authentic Lisa there is. Even if she's in panic about something or uncomfortable. Because prior to that, so through all this process, I used to always be telling myself a story in my head of who I was. So if I met someone and I felt insecure, I wouldn't necessarily realize it. What would happen is my head would start putting them down, or putting myself down, or thinking about something else, or zoning out, or trying to get away. And I wouldn't really recognize what was happening. Whereas now I try to stay really present to the natural organic feelings that are appearing in the chakras and being very truthful to them. Not all the time it happens. Sometimes there's stuff that goes unseen and then it gets revealed. And to me, it feels like in that, Lisa's then the most connected to the divine. That sounds really weird, but it feels like that this is a very see-through Lisa. So even though this Lisa isn't perfect and she still has conditions from the past, it feels like a very innocent Lisa that's appearing, more childlike. And it feels like the emotions pass a lot quicker because they're being acknowledged. There's not some denial that's happening, or the body is just not in tension and the mind is telling some other story like, I don't care about them, who gives a F about them, they're this, they're that, they're never going to make it in life. The body is just like, I feel totally vulnerable in this moment. And that feels like that Lisa is directly coming from life itself, even though this one was the one of this imagined Lisa. It sort of went through this like really long process to get to this Lisa that's in the head, the imagination of herself. So my advice to you is to get to know your body. So you say you did yoga since 2012. I think that's brilliant, doing yoga. Begins to make it more sensitive. And carry on in that endeavor, just trying to be more real and more honest to yourself. And it's kind of weird because non-duality isn't something that you do. You can't ever get to non-duality. You are non-duality. But what happens on the human level is you like brush off the bullshit, and then in a way, non-duality becomes more obvious, but not for anyone. Not all the time. Sometimes people could be really genuinely themselves, but have no idea who they are on the bigger level. But I feel like often what we have to do is like tidy up and make the person like really simple, and then another truth is seen when it's like really complex and going through this really intense process with lots of discomfort. You're so focused on yourself that it's impossible for another possibility to be suggested. Like saying this is it baby is really annoying to someone that's like deeply contracted and comfortable. So my advice is get to know the body. Thank you for your question. If you have any follow-up questions, you're welcome to ask.